So our guest today is Jim Stein, the founder and CEO of American Ratings Corporation, the creators of the Diamond Certified program. Uh, Thanks for joining us on Skype.
Great to be here.
Why don't before we get into your experiences, why don't you just sort of quickly explain what American Ratings is and how big it's grown over the years, when you started and how big it's grown.
Well, we founded the company in late 2001, and what we do is we rate companies on customer satisfaction. Local companies like plumbers and painters and tax preparers, mostly service in the auto, home, health, personal, and professional fields. And we rate them on customer satisfaction, and then those that score very well in the rating, we then present them to the public in various media, as well as provide them with research and tools to help them differentiate themselves based on high customer satisfaction for quality in the marketplace.
Great. And this isn't your first company doing this either, though.
Well, I've been out there doing things since I've been 16, so I'm a little older now and have had a series of businesses. In terms of ratings themselves, I was involved in pioneering a rating process of local companies and had an idea to how local companies could present themselves accurately as being high quality instead of just all the claims out there where companies are saying that they're good. And I took the idea to Public Research Institute at San Francisco State University, and we developed a methodology to do telephone customer satisfaction ratings based on a large random sample of actual customers of each applicant company, and then set up a pass-fail score of what we call highest in quality. So I had founded a company called ValueStar back in 1990, operated that until 2001, and then started American Ratings Corporation at
Okay.
that time.
And to be in full disclosure, I was a Value Star. I was a Value Star rated company and part of that program, which is where we first met. And then I was with Diamond Certified for 10 years until
Right.
I got out of doing being a local business really. So, how many local businesses do you have in your program right now?
Well, we've rated over a couple thousand, but we have 800 active Diamond certified companies in the 11 county Northern California Bay
Okay.
Area.
And how did you wind up trying to get your first clients really?
Well, we went out there with a legal pad and talked to people that we knew, company owners that we knew, and we sat down with them and said, if we structured it for you in the following ways and you qualified for it, would that be of interest to you? And we felt that we had a really compelling package of benefits to local companies if they could score high enough and earn Diamond Certified. So we got good feedback right away. We got some people saying, yeah, sure, I'll definitely do it if you guys get it going. And then we decided,
So
let's
you
do it.
you essentially pre-sold some before you launched.
Yeah, it was really evaluation on our own part. Our gut said, absolutely, this is going to work. And then we thought, okay, well, logically, we should go out there and talk to 5 or 7 or 10 different company owners and see what they think. And since we had a very positive reaction, we thought, okay, well, 1 plus 1 is 2. Let's do this thing.
Great. And when you did you have a set number in mind that you feel like sharing of how many companies you needed minimum to make it viable for you?
I'd have to think back, and I don't remember exactly what it was, but we would we felt that we would be successful at getting hundreds of companies to participate once we got going. It's a big area. There's a lot of companies, and consumers really need the information. So there was a real need there. We felt it would expand
Okay.
pretty well.
And so, what were some of the things that you said? Okay, I mean, did you have a list of priorities that you were going to knock out? Like, if we can get a minimum amount of people, we're going to offer this, and then what would be the next tier of service that we could offer as we expanded? Did you roll it out that way, or did you try to do everything at once? Or
Well, our theory from day one on the company, and we've always kept this philosophy, is that we always were looking to invest in the product more than our budget really should allow. And we would always make a decision to be late on geographic expansion, meaning it's better to be a year too late when we have the itch to expand geographically, and it's better to overspend on the product. So we were looking to have incredibly high loyalty among the consumers and also the companies earned Diamond Certified. So we were always looking every year to introduce more to the product while keeping the price point the same. And that was a lot of investment in the product. And even though we had an itch to, hey, after 4 or 5 years, we're doing great, we could expand geographically, we said, nope, let's sit on our hands. Let's invent more for the product. Let's not expand. Let's deliver more and more value every year.
So what was the biggest bite that you took that was over that stretched you probably at your limit?
Well, we were cooking along early, 2002, 2003. We had put together partnership deals with all the daily newspapers. We were presenting the local companies weekly in those newspapers. And we decided that we could come up with a very high quality print directory. And so we designed it. We liked what we had. We said, okay, we're going to print 200,000 of these. It's going to cost us close to a couple $100,000 to do. We're going to go back to the business owners who are already Diamond Certified and tell them, you know something, we're going to do all this at no additional cost. We're just going to do it because we think it makes the product a lot better. Let's do it. So that was, in a sense, a risk, but it goes back to our philosophy. Let's overinvest in the product, and it'll work out. And so we did that. Then we expanded that in further years to 300,000, 400,000. Finally, we're up to 840,000 directories in 10 zones in the Northern California area. Plus, we just announced this year quarterly print versions of the directory at 100,000 print per quarter as updates. And so, again, that was all trying to make the product better every year.
Terrific. And your website has grown as well. But that's been more of a gradual. As I see it, it seems like it's been more of a gradual.
It was pretty flat until the recession, and this is something that we're proud of as a team at our company. Is the recession hit, and all of a sudden companies were just trying to save themselves and not sign up, and good solid companies, some of them were going out of business. It was really difficult. And what we decided to do is, okay, let's hunker down a bit, but let's take a bunch of money every year during the recession, even though we're not even going to grow, we're going to shrink slightly, and let's invest heavily in the product, in the digital side of the product. So from nothing, we created an entire digital team, hired them, brought in a VP of digital, and revamped our entire website, came up with the concept of the digital, of the Diamond Certified video profile, just 2-minute video profile in every company, rolled that out, which took a lot of time and effort to roll out to all of our Diamond Certified companies, gave them those, created our Diamond Certified Company Report online, which has everything on one page that we feel that consumers like to evaluate a company. Internally, we always called it, let's create the best page ever. And that's what we focused on. And so we've rolled out a number of digital things over the last 2 or 3 years while we were hunkering down. And then as we've come out of the recession, now we have a whole bunch of new product, a big digital component to our program that we didn't have pre-recession.
I know for myself, oftentimes when I typed in my company name, the Diamond Certified came, if not before my website, right after. And I think that's probably the case for most of your clients. And I had I always had a fairly robust website compared to like some local businesses. Do you find your customers actually, your web presence for them is actually stronger than their own web presence?
Many times that's the case. And when you think about running a small business, how challenging it is to do it, you have to focus on your customer first. You have to focus on your employees. There's a lot of things you have on your checklist every day, and you can have the best of intentions to be more digitally savvy, but in reality, you will leave that to last many times. And so what we've done is we package it, and then we literally, our philosophy is to lift the company owner up, and even if they're kicking and screaming, carry them to success digitally. So we force them to have a great web presence and have a great page and have good ranking, etc. So that's been some of our success.
So now going back to your like the earliest times, what do you feel like when you what made you start Diamond Certified, and even before that, Value Star? I mean, what was your sort of you assessed your self-assessed strengths, and what made you think that this was the right business for you?
Well, for me, I had founded a Yellow Page directory in the San Francisco Bay Area, second language Yellow Pages, Chinese language, Vietnamese, Japanese, also Hispanic language, obviously Spanish. And we grew that over the course of several years into, I want to say, 14 different directory titles and in 3 states. And so a lot of times in talking to consumers, you get consumers in a focus group and they sit around and they say, okay, it's great that you have a list here of 327 plumbers in San Francisco, but can you please tell us which are the good ones? And we'd say, well, read the display ads because you're going to see the good ones say the right things in the display ads. And they'd look at you like, really? All of these claims you're telling me that which ones are real, which ones are not? So I always thought that, and we'd ignore it. We would just ignore that because it didn't fit our business model. So I always thought, it'd be interesting to have a business model where you had a true rating that could deliver the answer to that question that's in the back of every consumer's head, that it's great that you have a list of these companies, but which ones are good? So trying to create a rating process of local small businesses with small customer bases was the goal.
And what made you think that what gave you the confidence that you could pull it off? I mean, with your own skills and stuff. I mean, what was it? What was it that said, "Hey, I could do this"?
Well, the fact that the fact that companies that would naturally be looking to deliver important shopping information to consumers and new customers to businesses were entrenched in their products and they didn't want to cannibalize their own products. So the fact that I could conceive of the idea and would also know that even big company followers wouldn't follow because they don't want to hurt their own business. So for instance, the Yellow Pages used to be the big dog in town, right? So the Yellow Pages is not going to create a rating to say some display ads are better than other display ads, because then everybody will leave their book and be mad at them. So I thought, we can do this if we can actually do an accurate rating, and that's when I went to the university and we figured it out.
You figured you could carve out a niche in an area where the big boys weren't going to come and kill you right away.
Correct.
And were you leveraging the clients and the business from the Yellow Pages business into the ratings business, or were they completely separate entities?
Yeah, they were completely separate. There's certainly overlap, but it wasn't one followed the other. It was much more that there's the usual suspects in town, so to speak, on the companies, and you end up calling on them. But there's such a difference in what one offer was compared to the other. There wasn't continuity.
Did you sell the Yellow Pages business? Okay, so when you did that, were you thinking? Did you see ahead to see that the Yellow Pages were pretty much going to be done for, or you weren't seeing the demise of the?
It would be very convenient for me to say that, but that wasn't my whole motivation behind it. Without getting into a long 30-minute story of the thought process of me in my 20s going through the whole process, or I guess at that time I started when I was 25 and I sold it at 32, and I didn't sell it for much, frankly. I ended up wanting to convert the business to more of a monthly billing business to compete better against Pacific Bell at that time. And in doing so, I had to take outside capital, and then we missed our numbers by 10% one year, and then there was heat from the capital, and then the whole thing, I ended up saying, you know something, I'm a little burnout on this business, plus the deal becomes very bad for me. Let me extract myself from the business, sell it for something, and go on with the next idea.
So yeah, it was just time to move on.
It was a learning experience.
So in your new business, it's privately, it's a private company, and so you've learned. You don't have you decided you don't probably want to take outside capital, or is that one of the?
Yes. I mean, at this point, I'll never say never, but at this point, we like the independence of being self-funded.
Great. Okay. So when you first started, how many people did you have with you when you very first started?
When you say people, are you saying staff?
Staff. I mean, what did you start with?
I brought on a couple people who I made co-founders, and we also added, I think, a couple employees early, and then built the research call center. And so we probably had about 10 employees within the first 6 months.
So you just started right up. And how long did it take you to become to kind of break even, if you don't mind me asking?
I'd say we were cash flow positive in about the third or fourth year. But we could see how it was ramping that. We were off to a great start.
And you had confidence that it was going to get to where it needed to be within the amount of time.
Yes. I definitely had confidence. Now, it turns out the confidence was well founded, but it could have worked out a different way. But it did work out the way it was supposed to work out.
And how did you? I mean, how did you have that confidence? I mean, what were was it all mathematical projections or?
No, it was the reaction to what we were offering on the consumer side and also on the company side. When you do the ratings, and the ratings are very effective, and we give the tools to the companies and we start promoting those companies as being Diamond certified, and then they report that, oh, I'm getting consumers who like that we're Diamond certified, and they stay with the program at a high loyalty rate, and then you hear from consumers that they're starting to learn about it, then that gives you a lot of confidence. There's the sign-up rate, which has to do with revenue, the loyalty rate, which is the longevity of that revenue, and then the consumer reaction, which feeds the companies.
Yeah, you do an interesting thing where you give little badges how many years people have been with Diamond certified. So every year you get a new thing to display. It's your second year anniversary, fifth year, you know. So that does help retain with, I think, retention. I know I wanted to keep that next year's, you know.
Well, you know, business owners are very cut and dry in the sense that if it's not working in some way, then they really can't afford to do it. And with our program, yes, it does pull in for different types of companies a trickle of ongoing new potential customers, but also it lifts their brand up and shows them, and it makes them much more higher profile within their marketplace.
Right. I always found it worked as a differentiator. You know, when it came down to the last ditch and somebody was trying to decide between me and somebody else, I go, well, you know, we've been Diamond certified all this time. We have all these great ratings. You know, we wouldn't have that if we weren't delivering on what we said. And oftentimes that was enough to push people over. So, also now about your business, what do you think was and I'm going to ask you to, if you'll tell some tales here, what was the biggest mistake you think you made going out that you obviously you recovered from it, but what do you think you could have really, is there a point that you did something that might have really screwed you up?
All smart business owners know their mistakes. I don't think I remember mine. So you can put me in the other category of business owners. You know, I've made mistakes on other companies, and this company's in terms of major mistake. Well, I think I made definitely a staff mistake here and there that were pretty major, and definitely should have corrected them sooner. and because they're human resource, I'm not going to go more into detail on it. So I definitely would say that that was a big mistake.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what is there a decision you were unsure about? Somewhere along the line in the growth that has proven to be really a good decision, just something that other business owners might be able to.
Well, we've made a lot of key decisions that carried risk that I like our thinking on. Um, a number of them were, adding the Diamond Certified Directories, which I mentioned before, investing heavily in digital during a really tight economic time, making that investment. Also during that time, we buy a lot of media. I brought in all the media companies, renegotiated the deals, and then started negotiating for long-term contracts with the super low rates because it's a buyer's market in the recession when the media companies are getting hammered. And one thing which is the most lucky agreement I ever made is the following. I was negotiating with KNBR for more than a year, and they are the station that the radio station that covers the Giants. And for more than a year, we were negotiating, and finally, I decided that's it. We'll take the deal, and we signed a 3-year agreement. And that year, and we were going to start the following January. This was in August. The Giants were in 3rd place. They went on to win the championship. The following year, we had locked-in rates for 3 years that would, were fantastic. And now they doubled their listeners, and they went on to win another championship a couple of years later. And so that was pure luck.
That sounds like a good thing for you.
Right, but we wouldn't have been lucky if we hadn't been willing to take the chances during the recession of saying, look, we're going to use the problem as an opportunity. We're going to use the recession. It's best to buy in the recession, not sell, so we'll cut our sales costs. Let's use our money, build our brand, and buy.
That's great. Are there now when you make major decisions? Do you have a process that you go through to help you make them? What is your process?
Yeah. Okay. One thing that we do, and we've done this for at least 7 or 8 years out of the 12 years, 11 and a half years, is we have an operations team that we meet monthly. And this operations team has 6 people on it. They're key managers in the business. And early on, I brought on some really young superstars in our company. And for the first year or two, they just sat in there and watched and listened, and we'd ask them to participate, but they didn't much. But they've had a very strong trajectory in the company, and now are running major departments, and we have a very cohesive team, and we spend all day, one day per month, we write a formal operations plan with goals, action plans, budgets, etc. And then we have what we call our indicators of performance, key result areas, where we track about 300 different numerical values of tracking things in the business, as well as what we call a top 10 or a top 7, where we really look at it and evaluate it. So I try and run the entire company through the operations team. And it builds a lot of organizational understanding of what's going on. The other thing we do is every month we have an all-staff meeting, and we have every manager get up and report what's happening in the company. Because for managers, they always think everybody knows what's happening, and they're very open. But for people who are not managers, they're always thinking, what is management thinking? Why are they doing this? And so I think we have very good communications and the operations team process has been very effective.
Okay. So
your question is, all decisions go through our operations team. So we're dealing with a lot of different issues right now. So we're going to have our operations team. It's usually the second Friday of each month. We have all our numbers. We get in there. We have a written agenda in advance, and we go through. We look at the numbers first. We look at where we are to our goals. Then we have individual issues. We solve operational problems between departments. We look at new opportunities, and we get feedback on a lot of things. And then we either hold on, or we say, let's do it.
And how many people do you have in the company right now, total?
We have about 40.
And when you were smaller, did you do a version of this?
Yeah, we started it. We actually started as 3 people, right from the go, and then we added some outside members, probably about 2005,
Okay.
2006.
So, Jim, from growing your own company, what do you think the most important thing that you've learned and piece of advice you can give to small businesses is?
Okay, something that, well, everybody has their philosophies and ways of managing they've that works for them. And so this is my perception, is that I think small company CEOs should really understand how much of a leadership position they're in, and that it's 24/7 leadership. I'm not saying to work 24/7, but I'm saying who you are really comes through to your team, and that how you are every single day, every single second, every minute in business really is seen by your staff. So everything is a symbol of your company, and how it is to work there, how you treat the customers, how you deal when things go wrong is so important. It has a lasting impression. Every decision that you're making that's going to impact an employee or a customer actually will impact everybody for years. So consider that, and you should always be doing very symbolic decisions and realize that it's having a ripple effect throughout the entire marketplace. And I think a lot of CEOs say, oh, no, that customer is no good. We're going to do X, Y, and Z. And they don't realize that that's setting the tone for all their staff. That's setting the tone for how the marketplace thinks about it, as opposed to saying, what do I want my staff to get out of this, my decision? And I think that's something that all small company CEOs could hold in their mind every day more.
All right, you're in a unique position, and I don't want to let you go away without asking you some things because you see so many companies, and your company is in the business of rating companies for overall customer satisfaction. What is the thing that you see that small business owners, the ones that get it right versus the ones that don't? Is there one or two things that really stand out to you as things that people should know?
Yes, we have rated over 2,000 companies. We've conducted over 270,000 individual customer surveys. And so we look at that, we look for patterns. And what we find is that most of the time when a company gets a complaint from customers, it's not over the actual service performed. It's around the communication. So for instance, something goes wrong, a lot of times it's because there wasn't good communication beforehand, or there's not proper follow-up after the fact. Yes, maybe there was a blip in quality or there was a mistake made. But if the communication was excellent before, during, and after, that customer would have been super satisfied, even though the business had to correct a mistake. So the message is over-communicate and be a fanatic on how your company is communicating to consumers before, during, and after the job. If you do that, your satisfaction level is going to be much higher.
That's great. I know. Yeah, I know. For me, in my business, I've had some of my best and most loyal customers. Almost their first reaction, they came to me with a complaint, and through fixing it, they actually, I've developed some customers that stayed with me for years.
Right, and that's a good point. I mean, there was a study, I think it was in the Harvard Business Review in the 90s, and it was on Xerox Corp, and what they did is they did a study, and they found that customers were more likely to be loyal to a company where there was a mistake that they fixed than if there was no mistake at all. So what they're saying is, don't purposely make a mistake and fix it. But what it means is when your chips are down and there's a problem, then you know who your real friends are. And so when you come to the rescue and you behave well, consumers know that, there's always going to be some mistakes, but this company made a mistake and did well, and I'd rather stick with them and be loyal to them. That way, if something happens in the future, they're likely to behave in a similar manner.
Any other things that you can pass along to small business owners in terms of developing a good relationship with the clients?
Yeah, I mean, it goes back to leadership and setting the tone for your employees. most small business owners, if you have employees, there's contact with employees and the customer. And the way that you treat the employees is the way the employees treat the customer. And the way you lead is going to have a huge impact on your customer satisfaction. We would present our research studies to various company owners, and invariably the company owner who had the highest ratings, only 1 or 2 or 3 complaints out of 100, those would be the owners that would obsess over those complaints and be distraught over those complaints and be trying to find those customers and make it right for those customers, as opposed to the ones that have 15 or 18 different dissatisfied customers that are using excuses on why they were that way. So it starts with the leadership of the CEO. That's how you get the high customer satisfaction. They have to really care.
That's that's so important. Let me ask you. Now right now, your geographic location is pretty much the Bay Area, correct?
Expanded Bay Area is north of Sonoma County, south Santa Cruz, Monterey.
Okay. And one of the things I always found that, like I said, it was a differentiator for me to do this. What where for the customers that aren't in an area where they could become Diamond certified, what can they do as a differentiator to make themselves stand out? Until you get there.
I'm a believer that local companies, owners, they work very hard at their craft. They really have to put a lot of time into it, and and many times they put a lot of hours into it. They don't realize how much expertise in that particular field they've developed over the course of years, and they know they should contribute back to the community. But it's tough because you have to make payroll, you don't have time, and so forth. So you do a little bit. You always feel a little guilty. I did. But I think they should try to figure out a way that they can contribute their own expertise back to the community and try to help people in the community with the use of their expertise. They're expert. And so that gets their brand a sort of luster with their brand, to say that, hey, they're active in these different areas, providing information on roofing, just free answers, or providing information on dentistry or what have you. So that's a little pet project of mine, is contributing expertise. It's what you do as your business now, so that's kind of neat. I like what you're doing.
And that really ties in with with all the social media stuff. The biggest problem that people have with it is they have nothing to say. I mean, if you aren't creating content, they call it, but it's basically the information, then you'd really have nothing to contribute in that space. There's no reason for anyone to follow you if it's just, hey, this is all the good stuff about my business.
Right.
So anyway, well, I do appreciate your joining me and sharing your thoughts on this.
Had fun. Thanks.
Our guest has been Jim Stein, the founder and CEO of American Ratings Corporation, and they administer the Diamond Certified program. There's a link to Diamond Certified at the bottom of this page, along with a link to Jim's blog, where he talks about small business issues, because he's in a unique position with all the companies he rates to talk about how small businesses can achieve high customer satisfaction.